Good afternoon and welcome to a live edition of Mid-South Viewpoint on this Thursday. I'm Byron Tyler and it is a pleasure to be here. And I'm really enjoying these live shows together because I can put a program together kind of last minute. And to the demise of my guest, who I probably should be more respectful of their time, but I watched a video last night at home and I was greatly moved by it. And it was a friend of mine telling her story, her journey in life. And I'm not going to give you all the details right now because we are going to have Gina Hollenbeck here to tell us all about it. Gina, it's good to have you.
Thank you.
Hey, I owe a special tribute to your husband, Greg, who gave you permission to come because you have a busy family life with two growing boys.
Yes.
And he said, okay, dear, you can come, and I appreciate his willingness. So he's being the trooper right now, watching those two boys. And how old are those boys now?
13 and 8, and he just has to do homework now and pick them up from school, but he's willing, so it's okay.
I didn't realize that you have a 13-year-old now.
Yes.
So what's it like having a teenager in the house?
Well, he's a normal teenager. I love him. He's great. He is.
Now, he's taller than you, isn't he?
Yes, he's much taller than I am. He's outgrown me, for sure.
Tell me about this viral video that's now, this morning I was looking, it was over 30,000, still well over 30,000 views. And I think it was posted just Tuesday evening, I believe, or somewhere, maybe Wednesday morning. I don't know.
Wednesday morning.
Yeah. And we're at Thursday now, and it's already over 30,000.
Yeah.
So, but you have a video that you share your story, and also your love for a ministry that we love too called Life Choices of Memphis.
Yes, definitely. I love Life Choices.
The video was part of the Life Choices banquet, the annual banquet they have each year. And that was Tuesday night at Germantown Baptist Church. And your story was shared via video.
Yeah, it was incredible. The great team at High Point helped put together that video. And I was just telling you earlier, you should have seen what they had to work with. But they made me look really good.
No,
I prayed a while ago for God just to use my story. And I hope He is. It looks like He is.
That's pretty exciting, when God can take something that seems to be kind of horrible in our lives, kind of messy. But isn't that what God's in the business of doing, taking those broken and messy things and things that really don't make sense to us and using them for a higher purpose?
Yeah, He's amazing like that. Beauty for ashes.
Gina, I want some backstory on your life before we continue on and unfold the rest of it. But did you grow up here in Memphis?
Oh, I always hate that question. My dad was in the military, so we moved kind of everywhere. But for the most part, I lived in Memphis.
We also discovered that you and I were on the island of Guam at the same time, we believe.
Yeah, my dad lived there, and I came to visit him when I was in high school. Yeah.
You talked about riding the bicycle around the island, and of course, that was back in the mid to late 1990s, and that's when our family was serving there with TWR missionaries, and so it's crazy. I mean, you might have been somebody we passed, driving down the street.
That's right.
So what was your impression of being so far away on this remote island?
Well, it was so neat to see my dad there. And during that time, my husband actually asked, I was 18, and my husband knew that he wanted to marry me. And right after that, he asked my dad if he could marry me. So anyway, so it was pretty neat just being there alone with my dad and his wife, and just visiting the island was really cool. And
so did you actually meet your husband on Guam?
No. I didn't actually live there. My dad lived
there,
okay. And I was just visiting my dad during Christmas. So Christmas in Guam is something else. The humidity hits you when you walk off the airplane. It just feels a little bit wrong, but it's also pretty cool.
It's like you wear the weather there, you know?
Do.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing. And there's nothing like Christmas in Guam. I mean, they celebrate every holiday over the top. So if you can imagine how we celebrate here, it's even bigger on the island.
Yeah, that's the truth. Pumpkin carving, underwater pumpkin carving, and all kinds of fun stuff there.
Well, now that you said that, I know that you were on the island because we had fun like that too. Yeah, so much fun. Your dad was in the military, traveled a lot, so I guess you went to see him in different places. Mm-hmm. Are you the only child?
I'm an only child, yes.
So you're part of the only child club too, like I am.
I am.
And that has its advantages.
It does, absolutely. It
Don't have to worry
does.
about that sibling rivalry or anything?
That's true. That's true. But now having two sons that like to bicker occasionally, as brothers do. Anyway, I had to get used to that. But it's amazing too. I love my two sons.
When did your journey with Jesus begin?
Oh, that began when I was young. When I was 16, my parents actually divorced, and I decided that there had to be something more. And I remember one time just not sure, just totally not sure about if God really was there, if I loved that people, who were believers, I loved what they had, but I just wasn't sure that he was there. And I remember one night I was at a baseball game, and I locked my keys in my car, and everybody in the baseball team was pretty much so gone. The lights had gone out, and this was back in 93, and there were no cell phones then, and I was stuck in this baseball field and nobody was there. No one was around anywhere.
So you were by yourself?
I was completely by myself, and I was scared. I was in the dark, and I was looking, and I could see my keys in the car door, and I remember just, okay, God, if you're there, help me out. Like, how could I possibly get out of this situation? I'm going to spend the night here until people come the next morning. And I went to open the door, and the lock was just halfway in between. And I opened the door, and God was right there. And so at that point, I was like, oh, this is real, this is physical, and this is real. And so at that point, I wanted to start learning more about God. And so I decided, my mom was a preschool teacher, and I decided I wanted to teach Sunday school. So I had to take the little kids because I couldn't take any big questions because I certainly was not a theologian. I didn't know anything about the Bible. So I started teaching kindergartners Sunday school, and I started learning the lessons of the Bible through teaching them.
Wow.
And so it was pretty neat, and my belief grew stronger, and I began to know the Lord. And as I continued that journey, sometimes there were times that it waxed and waned, and but then when my husband and I actually, after we got married, we experienced infertility, and that was a time that I felt very alone and that God wasn't there. And I remember getting on my knees and just begging God, if you don't want me to be through infertility, if you don't want me to be a mother, then take this desire to be a mother away from me. And instead, he showed me adoption, and the way that God worked through adoption in our life was absolutely amazing. He was so there, and our faith grew stronger.
And that was really a journey, too, because prior to, I don't know if it was before you met Greg and of course, adopting the children, too, that your views on life were a little different.
Yeah.
I didn't realize that you had a kind of a pro-choice view.
I did. Actually, the decision for me, I decided I wanted to be a doctor when I was in high school. And I remember thinking that, and the decision had already been made, if for some reason I ever did get pregnant, I would certainly have an abortion, and I would be okay, and I would move on because that's how I would solve that problem. So that decision had already been made. I just never got pregnant. And so thankfully I didn't, but I did. I definitely had a pro-choice stance. I thought that was the woman's right to choose, and I thought that was the best thing then. Even though I was a Christian, I still was pro-choice, which is a lot. I think it's hard for a lot of Christians to understand how somebody could be a Christian, a true believer, and be pro-choice. But I, at the time, thought I was because I just didn't have enough knowledge. And so then my journey kind of continued, and I became a labor and delivery nurse. And I still, at that time, was kind of like, well, I think that sounds really good. A woman's, choice to, option to choose sounds really good. And so as I became a labor and delivery nurse, I learned more and more about life. I remember knowing for sure when I was going through anatomy and physiology that God had to be real, because if you look at the skull, there's this little hole called the foramen that this little vessel goes through, and our bodies are so intricate and amazing. So I knew God was there. Then the next thing I wanted to know is, or learned actually, is how valuable life is inside the womb. And I didn't know that until I was a labor and delivery nurse. And in the hospital, there are a lot of times when women have miscarriages. And when they have a miscarriage, they sometimes deliver between 2 and 3 months. And the baby's lungs are so immature that they just can't they can't sustain life. And so what would happen is we'd still have to deliver those mothers, but they wouldn't be able to walk out with a baby. So the babies would normally either come out, either not alive, or they would slowly die. And we honored that, though, in labor and delivery. And we let the mothers bond with the babies. Well, this sounds so morbid, but when the babies died, we had a room called the demise room. And we'd go in there in order for the mother to just be able to have closure and just be able to bond with her child and know that that was a real life. We would take little footprints and pictures of the babies and things like that. And as I sat there in that demise room and looking at some of the babies who had been miscarried, I would look and just notice that they had fingernails and they had eyebrows at 13 weeks sometimes. And I just thought, wow, this is not a product of conception. This is a baby. This is a real baby. And that's when my whole stance just changed, that these are children we're talking about. And so then I got trained in ultrasound. I became pro-life, and I got trained in ultrasound, and that just even verified it more to me.
So it really was being educated,
yes,
because similar journey for me. I remember coming to Christ as a teenager, and I didn't realize that life began at conception. And it was later, I'd been a Christian for maybe a couple of years, and then one day, wait a minute, that's a human life. And it just kind of, a light turned on.
Yep. That's how it was for me as well. I mean, just all of a sudden, the more educated I was, the more I learned that, wow, this is incredible. And then even through our journey with infertility, it was incredible. I mean, your pH has to be perfect. Every little thing has to be perfect to actually conceive a child. Wow. And people don't realize that because people get pregnant very easily or don't mean to, but still every single circumstance in your body has to be perfect to conceive a child. So
that's the God factor. That's the God bringing it all together. Well, Life Choices, as we mentioned, has been doing an incredible job and helping women make those life-affirming decisions. They've been doing it now, it's hard to believe, for 30 years.
Not great.
I mean, our radio station has been around for 30 years now, so we kind of share some of the same track, and we've been together through many storms and joys together. Sue Parker, the current director, doing a fabulous job with her staff. You're one of those staff members.
Yes.
By the way, Sue's birthday's tomorrow. Shall we say happy birthday to her?
Happy birthday, Sue. We're so glad you were born.
That's right. We are, Sue. Happy birthday. I'll tell you, I'll save you, Sue. I'm not going to sing happy birthday to you on the air, but maybe in person I will. So why don't you explain to those who aren't familiar with Life Choices what they do on a day-to-day?
So I'm the clinical director at Life Choices, and so in 2007 we became a medical clinic, and so a woman who is contemplating abortion can come to Life Choices, and she can come to just a very non-judgmental environment where we can teach her about all three of her options: adoption, abortion, and parenting, and we do it in a loving way where she can make the decision for herself. So once she comes in, if she's far enough along, she gets a pregnancy test, and then she gets an ultrasound. And in the dark of the ultrasound, the nurses and the client advocate is kind of like a friend, just somebody to hold her hand through the process, and somebody she can ask questions to. But the nurse gives her medical information. We have all registered nurses there. And in the ultrasound room, in the dark of the ultrasound room, she gets to see what's going on inside of her body. And so that's important regardless of what her decision is, because if she chooses abortion, it's going to tell you how far along she is. So she's wanting this information. But the advantage of it is we're basically determining if the life is viable. So we're making sure she didn't have a miscarriage, making sure the baby has a heartbeat, and we're looking to see how far along she is. And so then she gets to see her baby, and she gets to see that it's truly a life. And as I learned about ultrasound, I mean, it was truly amazing to me that sometimes before 6 weeks, which is 4 weeks from conception, so 6 weeks from LMP, which is their last menstrual period, 6 weeks, we can see a heart beating. And to me...
Wait, 6 weeks, you can see a heartbeat?
Absolutely. So right at 6 weeks, so that's 4 weeks from conception. 6 weeks is how they usually date it it's called gestational age. And so at 6 weeks on ultrasound, a lot of times we can. And so it's amazing to me to see that little heart beating, and the woman can see that too. And she gets to make a decision in the dark of the ultrasound room, and it's really neat. But I said this last night or on Tuesday night at the banquet. The decision for her, though, is not really whether or not to choose to have an abortion, but whether or not she's going to choose to trust God. And so that's what we can lead her through, that heart change, that decision. And so that's one of the most amazing things that we as nurses get to do at Life Choices.
Helping them make those decisions. And again, being informed, making an informed decision as they look at their life and knowing what the best plan is for their baby. And through, as you mentioned, you've been on the receiving end of the adoption side of things. And so God has blessed you and helped you to be the mom you always wanted to be.
That's right. Well, we just love the women who come in to Life Choices regardless of the decision they make. I mean, even if a woman has an abortion, we still love her. We don't have to worry about the baby. We know where the baby is. But that's the thing about Life Choices is it's just non-judgmental, and we love the women regardless of their decisions, and we hope we love them to Christ so that they can learn who He is.
How would you describe the worst day in your life?
At Life Choices?
No, just in your life journey. Because you got some news back, how long has it been now when the doctors first told you? You were, first of all, you started feeling sick.
Right. That was the worst day of my life. I was diagnosed on October 27th with stage 4 lung cancer. Even though I've never smoked, I was very healthy, ate healthy, loved to exercise. And on October 27th, I learned that I had cancer. And then the next day, we did an MRI, and we learned that it had spread, and we learned what stage it was. And so, of course, the first thing my husband and I did was get on the internet and do research. And the research says that, 1, it's not curable. And 2, the prognosis isn't that great. And so it was pretty scary. And I would definitely say meeting with my oncologist for the very first time, not even believing the word cancer was in my body, not even believing that I was at an oncologist's office, but him showing me the slides of my cancer and where it was. And we sat in this room with lots of video screens, and he took his time. It took about 2 hours for him really to, for him to tell me and for it to digest for me and my husband. And that was probably the worst day of my life, learning that I had stage 4 lung cancer.
I mean, you even got to a place where you were even planning your funeral, which I guess when you get news like that and you think there's possibly no medical reason that you can be a survivor of this, then that's just the natural thing to do.
I was, yep, absolutely. And I changed after about 15 minutes of planning that funeral.
I'm so glad.
I decided not to plan my funeral. I just decided, you know what, and right about that time, I don't know if you remember the Paris bombings that was happening, and I remember watching it on the news and thinking, none of those people planned their funerals, and I'm not going to plan my funeral, and I'm not going to die. These people who are telling me that I don't have long to live, they don't know me, and they don't know God, and so I said, I'm just going to go ahead and live better than ever now.
And, Gina, I think it's your determination for life and your love for life that is, and you're changing your perspective on this that has really just motivated and encouraged so many people. And the people now that are watching that video, and I want our listeners to make sure you go to, it's on my Facebook page. I shared it, and I know it's on your Facebook page. But if folks want to go find this video we're talking about, how can they do that?
They can go like Life Choices, go to Life Choices of Memphis Facebook page, and it's there. And I would love for you to watch it because it's true. Life is amazing and miraculous and fragile, and we should enjoy it. And I think sometimes the enemy tries to take that joy away from us, but our God wants us to have joy, and He wants us to live and love life.
So many things that cause us to fear in life, whether it be news from a doctor or, losing a job or having a child that's maybe addicted to drugs. There's so many things that cause us to fear. Even taking a trip, I took a trip a couple of weeks ago to Washington, D.C. This is a small thing. And I flew up there by myself, and I thought, well, I'm going to ride the subway because I had never done it before. I thought this, and that was kind of a fearful thing, But I said, no, I want to do this, And it wasn't like I guess it could have been a life or death thing, but just the experience. But I wouldn't have had the experience, even though I got on the wrong train a couple of times and went the wrong direction. I was able to change that out. And I think that most of the things that we fear never happen anyway. And we rob the joy that Jesus wants to give us today. How have you found that to be true?
Oh my gosh, in so many ways. I have this necklace on right now that says, it's imprinted in it, and it says fearless. And a really, really neat lady gave it to me when I was going through my brain surgery. So I had craniotomy to remove a brain tumor in my brain. And one of the ER nurses who had helped me there gave me this necklace. And it's so fitting because I know, one, I am not afraid to die. I want to live more than ever. I'm fearless. I just have no fear of death. And it's amazing because you have Christ on your side. And so anyway, she gave it to me. Her mom was actually battling cancer, and she passed away. And after she passed away, this was her mother's necklace. And her mother was also fearless and lived life to the fullest. And so that's what I want to do too, just be fearless.
Wow. Now, you haven't been doing this alone. You have really not only Greg and your family and your friends at High Point and other close friends, you've got this army that follows you around.
Yeah.
They're called Gina's Army.
Aren't they awesome? I love them so much.
Tell me how this got started.
Well, after we found out about cancer, the first thing anytime somebody gets cancer, they want to know exactly where the cancer is. So you have to get a PET scan. So basically a PET scan lights up anywhere where cancer is. And so I was sitting there really nervous. And at that point, we hadn't really told very many people that I had cancer. And my husband and I were holding hands. And he's like, what should we do? Should we tell people? And I was like, well, I don't really want people to feel sorry for me. But the truth is, I know prayer works. So why don't we just elicit prayers? And he said, okay, let's do it. So I was in there waiting to get my PET scan, and it takes about an hour and a half or so to get the PET scan. And while I was in there, he's like, I created a page while you were in there getting your PET scan, and it's called Gina's Army. I was like, I love that name. That's awesome. They're prayer warriors. This is awesome. And then and it just took off, and we all of a sudden had all of this support from people. And I'm not going to lie. I mean, it has been amazing to have that support. There were some dark days when I really hurt. And some days I think, gosh, heaven would be a lot better than this. And through those dark days, I sometimes just look on Gina's Army, and people are so encouraging and just so incredible. And I mean, it just lifts me up and makes me think, yeah, I can do this. I've got this. God's got this. He's got me, so I can do this.
Gina, it's not only been a blessing for me to watch Gina's Army, because I'm a member of this team and have been praying with you too. But the posting, even though there's a lot of support for you, it's not all about you. Because I've seen you use this to touch others' lives, others who are walking a similar journey that you've been walking. And that's been such a blessing to see that you've used this for a platform to bless others.
Oh, it's been so great because I can elicit up some prayers for some of my friends who need prayers, and it works. That's what's so cool.
Say that a little louder.
It works.
It works.
Prayer works.
It works. Oh, my. As we mentioned, Life Choices has a great place in your heart, and we love Life Choices here at Bot Radio. We've supported it for so many years, and we love to have Sue and Karen and all the gang. You come in from time to time and share the Life Choices story on the For Life and Liberty program that airs on Monday here. And so we want people to know how they can be involved, because there's opportunities for volunteers, there's opportunities for people to give. And by the way, there were folks who couldn't show up, or for whatever reason forgot about the Life Choices banquet on Tuesday night at Germantown Baptist Church. And so this would be a great opportunity for them to give that financial gift now, because it makes a difference. Just talk about some of the practical ways people's gifts help support Life Choices.
Oh my goodness, there's so many ways. Each one of the visits that a woman has costs about $600. And so with that, their support is helping those women to be able to find out what's going on inside of her body and to choose life. It's amazing. We have a website, lcfriends.org. If anybody wants to donate, that's a great place to do it. And Life Choices need you. We are completely funded by donors. And so that's what we need to be able to run the clinic, to turn on the lights, to give a girl an ultrasound, for her to have a pregnancy test, for her to have the information that she needs. We need money to be able to do those things, to pay nurses, to be able to spend their time to love on the clients. And it's amazing, the support that we have. But Life Choices means so much to me because they're the ones that made me a mom. And there's nothing that I could ever do to repay Life Choices. So anyway, of course, it's a ministry that's near and dear to my heart. So I hope people will generously donate.
Interacting with the clients who come in the doors is while you reach out to them and love on them and share the story of life with them. Is there any particular story that stands out, over the time?
There's one that I love to use because I love the story of Peter stepping out of the boat. And so I'll tell girls, that's where you are. I mean, you're faced with this really, really scary decision. And if you will step out of the boat, just like Peter, and keep your focus on Christ, he's going to walk with you and you're going to walk on water. And, I'm not saying it's going to be easy or anything like that, but God's got it and he's got you. But when you take your focus off Christ, you can sink down, but just keep that focus on Christ and you're going to be able to achieve anything. It's not always going to be the way you want it, but it is going to be incredible, and God will provide for every single one of your needs.
But there might be some lady right now, young girl listening to our program right now that's in that valley of decision, thinking about, do I choose life? There's financial reasons. I'm not ready to raise a child right now. I mean, whatever reason that they could give. I mean, I know you face this daily through your work. I mean, what do you say to women that might be sharing that heartbreak right now with you?
Well, each woman has to go through the decision process herself. But the decision is, really to trust Christ or not. And when you think about that practically, because you want to think about like, okay, well, I have no money. I am living on the streets or whatever the situation is. I mean, there's always something. Of course, there's always the opportunity to choose adoption, too, if they're in a position where they just think, I just cannot be a mother. Adoption is an option that she can be a really big part of, and she gets to choose the birth family. A lot of people don't know that about adoption. In fact, before we adopted, the only thing that we knew about adoption is what we had seen on Lifetime stories, and it wasn't that great. So I think a lot of girls don't realize that they can be so involved in the process. And I think about my own son and his birth mother and how amazing she was. And she really wanted to parent him. She loved him so much. And she just looked at the situation and she just thought, you know what? I want something even more for him. I want him to have a mom and a dad more than what I can. So that was her situation. And the truth is, he knows now. He is loved so much that she put everything that she wanted to the side and she put him above her. And that's what true love is. And that's what Christ is all about. And so that's what we get to show people at Life Choices too.
And that website again is Life Choices.
lcfriends.org.
lcfriends.org to get more information. Mm-hmm. Also, if folks want to follow you on social media, can they do that?
Absolutely.
You're on Twitter, Facebook? What are you on?
For me, I'm on Instagram, Facebook. Facebook is the main one where Gina's Army is. And so that's where I really post a lot of the information about my cancer and what's going on and things like that, and elicit prayers for other people who need prayers. So Gina's Army on Facebook is the best place. But I'm on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. I'm social media.
Gina, God bless you. Thank you for being my friend, sharing your heart with us, being with our friends live on a last-minute notice. Thank you, Greg Hollenbeck, too, for taking care of the boys. We're going to have to say goodbye. My producer, Maria's in there saying, get off the air. It's time for the next program. But I appreciate you so much. God bless you, my dear sister. Thank you so much. Friends, we'll say goodbye. We'll talk to you next time. Bye-bye.